With smart contracts live, Bitcoin having a bit of a tantrum, Cardano's ADA dropping 17% on launch. What's next for ADA? Guys, in this video, we're going to dive into what is going on most recently here with Cardano and specifically the price action of ADA. In this technical analysis, we're going to dive into the weekly, daily, and hourly charts, review what is going on with the price action. We'll take a look at advice.io to understand the underlying data that sits behind ADA and give you a bit of an overview of where we think Cardano is going next. If you find this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will stay up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with that said, done out of the way, let's dive into this technical analysis on Cardano. So we're going to start things off, guys, with the weekly chart. Just to kind of highlight, the structure is still intact. We have 5 impulse waves to the upside, kickstarting things really back in March of 2020, where we saw wave 1 peaking out in July. Wave 2 bottomed out towards the end of the 2020, really kind of bottomed in September. We then saw wave 3 really going strongly, peaking out up here in May. That's from the lows of March 2020 to May 2021. This was about 14,000% in gains. We then saw a wave 4 correction, took a lot of people by surprise, but ultimately this was a pretty healthy correction. We actually saw a triple tap on the bottom here on the low areas. This actually started to see a good push back to the upside in late July. From here, we set some new all-time highs, and recently we've had a bit of a pullback. But again, this is our 5th wave coming in nice and strong now, and nothing will move up in straight lines. We can see the healthy correction that we saw in the last few days. About 13 days or so, we've dropped down about 22%. I think at peak, we actually were about negative 35%. Overall, though, this is a healthy correction. You see these things happen even on our 3rd wave to the upside here. And again, we should be expecting at least one more kind of correction to occur on our push up towards our kind of price target of $7.22 to $10. Now, there are 2 different price targets. We have one that has basically just based on technicals. We have the high from 3 and the low of 4 with a Fibonacci retracement tool indicating $7.22. This again doesn't really take into consideration smart contracts, the launch of new projects, or even the migration of projects from the Ethereum ecosystem to the Cardano ecosystem. So that as a result, I do think we're likely to stretch above the $7.22 area up to maybe even $10. But again, that would be speculation. So we're going to say it's somewhere between the 2, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. We can see that we're overbought on the stochastic RSI, just pulling down a little bit on the fast line here. And again, this is not too much of a problem. When we review our 5 impulse waves to the upside here on the weekly, we can see that we were low areas of March 2020, we were oversold. Pushing up into wave 1 was overbought, and we're up here for quite a few months. We can see wave 2 was a nice and oversold area, again down here for a little period of time, before going up into wave 3 overbought. And again, you're entering this basically in November of 2020, and we did not leave this area until March of 2021. So we're up here for several months. We then come down into wave 4, where we're down into the oversold area, and now we're back at the top end here as we go for this wave 5. So ultimately, this is not bothering me because I know we can be up here for quite some time. As previously stated, we were up here for quite a few months before we started to actually slip back down into the downside. There is a little bit of volatility here, like there was at the beginning of wave 3 and even at the beginning of wave 1. So ultimately, this is pretty much common with what we've seen previously and doesn't bother me in the slightest on these larger timeframes. That being said, on the smaller timeframes, being overbought would be indicating that we should be looking for a pullback soon. Ultimately, though, this is just entering this area, so I'm pretty confident we're going to be up here for a while yet. Overall, this structure on the weekly chart is perfectly fine and is intact. Wave 4 was very, very shallow, and I think that was courtesy of the fact that everything that was going on with the ecosystem and some of the developments. We can see wave 2 was relatively flat, wave 4 was sharp, and again, wave 4 did not come anywhere near wave 1, so ultimately everything is intact for the 5 impulse waves to the upside. So let's jump down into our daily. Now we obviously have a good understanding of what's going on with the weekly, that everything is structurally intact. Here we can obviously see what is going on when it comes to our structure here for our daily. We can see everything in a little bit more detail. We can see the recent pullback. We can see the resistance line that was up here at $2.97 before we actually wicked up and got a new all-time high at $3.10. Then we saw Bitcoin pull us back down into our Fibonacci areas down here, the 618, 702, 786, this yellow box area. We actually wicked down to just below the 702 before pushing right on up. So this was again an interesting opportunity to maybe even buy up the dip. We can see that it was a good push to the upside here, and we are setting higher lows. So again, that's pretty bullish sell. We can also see there's a downward trend as well. We'll get into that on the smaller time frames. We can see that we oversold on our daily stochastic RSI, like we were overbought previously on the stochastic. We can see we're overbought on this nice push to the upside. We had this correction actually kind of coming in the middle here once we were rejected from the 786, and then pretty much from here we started to see us lose momentum, even though we were pushing the price up. So we're getting nice and low, ready for that next move to the upside. There is a little bit of volatility on the smaller time frames, but the weekly and the daily are showing us some pretty good indications that we are going to be starting to see another wave to the upside shortly. And we have to have a little bit of patience as we start to see things kind of roll out on the ecosystem, new projects launch, projects migrating over from the Ethereum ecosystem. And with that will come transactional volume. This is something that Chris talks about a lot. And with transactions, guys, we're going to start to see a nice steady rise to the upside. This is something that you can see happen with the Polygon network, with Matic. Once those transaction volumes kick in, the price discovery on the back of them are significant. So it's what we're looking for next, as now we have the smart contracts. We are just waiting for projects to launch, waiting for migrations to occur, and waiting for the transactional volume to actually start to hit the mainnet, where we see a significant amount of use cases for ADA coming to fruition. Here we can obviously see that we are looking at pushing up on this daily to the 297, find the resistance, push through, and get to our first price target. The first price target is $3.37. Okay, that's the 1.618 based on the high of wave 3 and the low of wave 4. Okay, so again, that's technically the first area that we're looking at. After that, we come in at the 2.618, coming in at $4.84. 3.618 comes in at $3.31, and then we top out at $7.22. But I do think that we're likely to overextend a little bit as we head towards this $10 range, and we'll review the situation once we get closer to the $7.22 area to see if we can push through it. Ultimately, everything on the daily here is looking pretty good. We're nicely corrected. We're waiting now just to make sure that everything lines up on the smaller time frames, ready for the next move to the upside. Overall, there's no problems to report on the daily chart, so it's at this point that I will actually jump over to the advice.io dashboard and take a look at the underlying data. Sometimes there's things that we just do not know about without taking a look at what the artificial intelligence and machine learning is also indicating to us. So for that, we will use our artificial intelligence machine learning of advice.io. There is a link in the description below, guys. If you have not heard of these guys or joined up already, do recommend it. This AI is going to give you a bit more insight on your cryptocurrencies. Here we have Cardano ADA, an A3 rated cryptocurrency overall on the platform. Basically, we go from A1 down to D rating. So being up here, the third best rating that it can be, it's definitely being indicated that it's okay and it hasn't got any major issues in the underlying data. We can, of course, break this down a little bit further. We can see the fear and greed index that is specifically to Cardano is actually a B3 rating, indicating that actually we were extremely greedy up to the launch of smart contracts, and then we started to see a bit of a pullback to the downside. And here what we can see is actually that we're moderate, right? We're not fearful, we're not greedy, and actually this isn't a bad place to be. This basically is indicating that we are not in the extremely greedy scenario where profits can be taken, but we're also not fearful where we're just going to sell our ADA at a loss, for example. That being said, for buying opportunities, you want to see it in the fearful status, specifically in a bull run, and of course when you are seeing profits when you're seeing it being greedy, that's where profits are taken. Ultimately, the moving averages are up at an A2 rating, so no problems with the averages on the Cardano, so that's good to see. The Sharpe ratio, again, an A2 rating. So the Sharpe ratio indicates risk-reward ratio. We are above the 50-day average, but we have come close to our line here, very, very close indeed, after we've had a bit of a pullback. That being said, though, I think we are going to continue to ride this to the upside shortly, and we should hopefully start to see a nice gap appear between our 50-day average and our green line there. Overall, A2, no problems to report there either. The profitability being the best that it can be with an A1 cryptocurrency. Like I said, from March to May, we saw 14,000% in gains. Not the best, but not the worst either. So pretty lucrative return on investment with a lot more to come, I do believe. We can see the AMI-HAD ratio here is also A2, so liquidity is not a problem for Cardano. Here we can see there's no problems being indicated from the AI or ML on the AMI-HAD ratio. So liquidity is no problem, the profitability is no problem, the Sharpe ratio is no problem, the moving averages are no problem, and we're pretty neutral from a fear and greed index perspective. Overall, an A3 cryptocurrency rating. No major issues that we should be worried about or reporting on for Cardano. So overall, everything is looking pretty good for the weekly. The daily is looking pretty good from a structurally point of view. And of course, the underlying data from advice.io is indicating no problems either. So now let's get into the smaller time frames. This is where we start to see some of the more immediate price action. Okay, so we can obviously see a good push to the upside from our downward trend, right? We broke the downward trend. We had an upward trend that got broken. We pushed up. We tapped this area here, and we fell back down in line with what Bitcoin was doing again, with Bitcoin pulling us back down below our trend. Up here. So we had a good upward trend that was broken, i.e. we were setting higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And then we continued to fall back down, but still we set these higher low areas against these previous lows. And that being said, we actually back tested on our downward trend, turning that into a support trend rather than a resistance trend. That being said, the main issue here is basically finding a good support line, and that is what we have done. If I zoom in, we can just make this a little bit clearer. We can actually found down that we're wicking onto our $2.32 support line. Okay, and this is an area that we've been wicking around for quite some time, but haven't been able to close below. So this is an interesting area that we want to monitor. We take a look at the short-term price action here, and we take a look at our stochastic. We are looking to kind of pull back a little bit, but I do think we are likely to not go down too far. Maybe a $2.35 scenario is low enough to get this momentum taken out of our stochastic and allow us to have a good swing to the upside. As I mentioned, the daily is looking very good, with a good amount of motion to the upside due in the very near future. That being said, we just need to see this kind of also marry up on our shorter timeframes. Bitcoin has started to push back to the upside, so if that is a good tell but it could lie ahead here for Cardano as well. Hopefully we'll get that bounce and move up to our other resistance lines where we can start to push through the $2.44, $2.47. Now, I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of work to happen here on the smaller timeframes, so we can see a lot of resistance points on this journey back to the upside. But guys, I do think we are going to get there. We just need to be a little bit patient as we start to see new projects roll out on the ecosystem and new migrations from the Ethereum ecosystem to Cardano. If we're ever in doubt, we must zoom out and pay attention to the bigger picture. We don't want to lose our patience by getting frustrated with the hourlies. For example, when we do know that the good structures are still intact for the weekly and the daily, we just need to kind of have a little bit of patience as we get through the next stage of Cardano's life and we move into the next phase of this bull run. Guys, I'm going to leave that there. If you have found this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.